everybody. This is the first official episode of the Reparations, and our special guest today is the one, the only, the true, the most important Mr. Theodore Butch Michael.
Hello. Oh, ask the question again because I forgot the question.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So the question is, if you could, in so many words, however many you need, describe your financial journey from beginning to where you are now, how would you do so?
All right. So as far as my financial journey is concerned, it started when I was about 13 years old. Mm-hmm. I was in the 8th grade, and I worked as a janitor for my middle school 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. I made a total of like $33 every 2 weeks. Okay. I kept $5, and I gave the rest to my mother to help her make ends meet at home. In high school, I drove school bus, which paid a nice little sum at the time. Mm-hmm. Yes, back then, when I was in high school in the 70s, students drove school bus. They wouldn't do that today with students. Back then, they allowed us to drive school bus, and they paid us every 2 weeks for driving school bus. Mm-hmm. And I had about 80 students on my bus from elementary school to middle school to high school that I had to go pick up from their homes in the countryside and take various schools. Mm-hmm. So, and I started driving school bus, believe it or not, at 16. So, they wouldn't let a 16-year-old drive a school bus with 80 kids on it nowadays. But so that's what I did, but not today. When I was in college and I attended the University of South Carolina, I had a work-study job and I delivered pizzas in addition to taking a full load each semester of 18 hours. Wow. So, and the reason why that came to be is that my mother passed when I was about, unexpectedly, by the way, when I was about 15. Mm-hmm. So I never wanted to be a burden or a chore on anybody or any family members about caring for me and so forth. Mm-hmm. And so I was always trying to provide for myself. Mm-hmm. So as a matter of fact, the last semester in college, I only needed one elective to graduate, and I majored in accounting. Mm-hmm. So I spent that whole semester interviewing for different types of job opportunities because back then, not so many people were immediately going on to graduate school, for example, after college. So they were getting jobs and then hoping that the employers would have some type of program in place that would allow them to go to graduate school, right? And pay for it that way versus having to go back into school right away and trying to find a way to pay for a graduate school. So I interviewed my whole last semester in college, and I got lucky, and I was able to get a job down here in Atlanta, and I started on July 3rd, 1983, and I made a whopping $18,500 a year.
What? What's the comparison?
And that was big money back then.
I'm saying.
I thought I hit the lottery, I thought I hit the lottery, and but times have changed. I know, nowadays kids get, six figures in salaries and so forth starting out, but so things are definitely different today. But I was fortunate and I was happy for that start, for my career, etc. And I started working. And one good thing that happened, the federal government had just issued or passed the legislation that will allow companies to start 401k plans. And which meant that, you contributed as a worker to the 401k plan, and then you had your employers that would match it up to a certain percent, And so that was like getting free money if you contributed. So I immediately started contributing to the 401k plan, in addition to having a savings account and a checking account. So the checking account just was there to pay bills, but the savings account was to not only have my 401k plan, but when I got paid, I would also pay myself by putting money into the savings account as well. So I immediately started out with two streams of income, or two streams of investments: the 401k plan, which was contributed to by my employer, and then I started putting money into a savings plan. And back then, the savings accounts were paying like 3% and 4% interest. Whereas today, you're lucky if you get 1/10 of 1%.
I'm saying pennies on the dollar.
So they don't pay anything now. It's really just a joke to say you have a savings account, but that's for another story. So that started my financial journey as far as savings. And what I would do is I would always try to surround myself with people who were doing well financially, you know, as friends. And they would share with me ways of making money without having to work for it on a 9 to 5. And so I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you don't have to work for everything that you earn and so forth. You can invest and then let the money work for you. And so I said, tell me no more. And so that's when I found out about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, for example, investment firms like Vanguard, Fidelity, Chubb, Morgan Stanley, and the list goes on and on. And so my idea at that point, after, you know, meeting these different people, is to have at least 5 streams of retirement income, not to include Social Security, because nobody knew then, and they still don't know now, if Social Security is going to be around when people retire. So I wanted to have 5 streams, at least 5 streams of income coming in when I retired. And so to this point, I started, you know, with humble beginnings with my first job. And so, you know, I've changed jobs several times now. And so all along the way, I've always invested in the 401k, and I've never taken any withdrawals from my 401k ever. And ever since I started investing in 401k, I've always rolled my 401k over to my next employer, for example, so it would continue to grow from that point and compound and so forth. So that started my financial journey and got me to where I am now. And so right now, I have 6 different streams of investments that I have that hopefully when I get ready to retire will give me a nice, you know, income coming in so that I can live comfortably the rest of my life. Well, hopefully that answered your question.
Now, may I ask, what are the 6?
Yeah, so I still have the 401k, right? I do have money in a little savings account, but it's for more of a rainy day type of thing if I need some quick cash, for example. I have 2 IRAs, right? I have mutual funds. I also have an annuity. Okay,
you got into it.
So I have an annuity, and I have another 401k that I can no longer invest in, but it's got a nice bit of money that's growing and it's being compounded. So that'll be a stream that I have. And some of my money, for example, is with Chubb, some of it's with Vanguard, some of it's with Fidelity, some of it's with Morgan Stanley. So I don't like to put all my money in one basket, if you will. Like you wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket because somebody might throw a rock in it and crack them all. So I want to make sure that I'm diversified and I have money in different investment arms and that type of thing, so that you can keep them honest. And then on top of that, you know, if something happens to one of them, you still have the other ones that might help.
And are the IRAs both Roth?
One's a Roth and one's just a regular IRA, because some of the funds that I wanted to put in there, I couldn't put them in there tax-free, for example. I couldn't pay for them upfront into the Roth. So.
Okay, so.
But I would say if you have the option, the Roth is the better way to go.
Okay. That is what I've heard. I'll go for the second part of this question. So, did you know how you wanted to end up, as in like where you are now, or did it kind of just develop along the way?
So, as I sort of mentioned above, my financial journey developed over time, and it's still evolving, by the way. So you don't get to a certain approach, get to where you're at a certain approach, and that's the only approach you use. You're always looking for new and more inventive ways are coming out all the time to develop as an investor. And so I would say it's something that has evolved and it continues to evolve. There are going to be other experiences and other opportunities to think about and ways in which to grow over time. And then, I have to say, too, that when I was coming up, I didn't have any people or anybody I knew that thought about their lives from a financial safety perspective. All the people I knew coming up were what I called hourly wage earners, etc. And, their whole thing was I go to work, I make money, and that's how I live and so forth. And maybe the company had some type of little pension plan back then, or maybe they depended on Social Security, but nobody thought about investment options and making your money work for you. So I didn't have a lot of examples growing up about a financial journey and which way I was going to go. So I really didn't start learning about this until I got my first job out of college.
And it seems like you were always interested in the next best action to do with finances, like since the beginning.
Yeah, and I think, there are always new approaches to finance that are coming up and new ways to make money, new things to do. Like the big thing now is Bitcoin and being a part of that. So that's evolving in finance and so forth. Whereas there are other things like hedge funds and all those kinds of things that have happened over time. So there are going to always be new avenues and new regulations put in place that will allow people to invent different ways of investing in or trying to make money. So always, keep your ears and eyes open for those opportunities, because it might be the next best thing. And what we're doing today, or what I'm doing today, might be passé, for example.
Very true.
But you start with something that's available now, so when something new comes up, you're ready to maybe move some of your money into that area if it makes financial sense for you. So don't just say, well, I got a 401k and that's all I'm going to do and so forth, because you might be missing big opportunities by just doing that.
Yeah. Well, you always have to have the conversation.
And you always have to try to learn and be financially literate, about what the market is and how you can make money and where you can put your money and so forth, and where you can lose your money and that type of thing. So you have to keep, your eye on the prize. If you, there are many different journeys out there, and you can't say that one is necessarily bad or one is so far ahead of another. You have to just continue to look at it and weigh it and see which one works for you the best, because what worked for me might not work for you or someone else, And then it might be timing too. So you're a young investor starting out, for example, there might be opportunities for you to take more risk than someone would take if they were in their 70s and so forth. So it's time to be more conservative, and because you've made all your investment money, for example, all your earnings, so now it's time to get ready to use that. So you're not going to be as risky and invest in the market where maybe in some very risky stocks where you could lose a lot of money, because you're at the point now where you want to use the money, so you want to put it in a place where it's safe. Whereas with you're starting out, you can take more risk, and you have time to watch the market and to watch your investments change and grow.
So you're saying in the beginning you should definitely have a more aggressive aggregate of stocks.
Definitely, yes. And most financial planners will tell you that. So you're in your early 20s, for example, they'll tell you, yeah, it's good to be aggressive because you have a long way. You have probably 40 years of earning ahead of you, right?
Right.
So, take some chances early while you don't have a lot of responsibility. So there's a lot more chance to have better upside then.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's say somebody is not in our situation where they're working at a job is there, of course, like some range of jobs that don't have 401ks. So they wouldn't be able to hop in this way.
Right. So there are jobs that don't offer, employer contributing plans like 401k and so forth. Right. Definitely. But there are other plans out there that are comparable to 401k, like a 403b.
Okay, 403b, what is that?
Yeah, so that's like a 401k, but that's for an individual to contribute to.
Okay.
So like you might own a barbershop, for example, and of course there's no 401k there, or you might work at a barbershop, a hairstylist or whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no 401k, but you want to invest and save your money. Well, you can put it in a 403b, and there are some advantages for you as an individual investor to use a 403b.
Nice. Okay.
Or 503b, I should say.
A 503b.
I think it's a 503b.
Okay, I'll look that up.
503b, I think that's it.
Let me see. What's some advice that you have for those who are going to start their financial literacy development?
I would say no two financial journeys are necessarily the same.
Okay.
Well, what's good for me might not be good for. So there's no excuse about not investing. It'd be nice if you had an employer contributing to it, but there are a lot of jobs, especially people who work for small businesses, they just can't afford to do that,
Yeah.
All they can do is to keep the lights on, keep the payroll going and so forth, and pay the Medicare insurances and that type of thing on your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to be willing to do that for yourself. So if you eventually get into a position where you leave that organization and you get in a company that has a 401k, then maybe you can roll your money over into that,
Right.
And so you're not starting from zero.
Right. There's no excuse as long as you know, and that's why we have to.
Yeah, you have to know,
that.
like, okay, I don't have a 401k plan. What else is comparable that I can take advantage of, on a pre-tax basis?
Mm. You have to change it. That's like known though, because that would be very important.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Vice versa, and some of your other friends. So, your journey might have some of the same. Your journeys may have some of the same ingredients that will lead to a solid financial foundation and independence, but they may have some nuances that are different.
Right.
So, take the best from several investment approaches and use them while new ways are being invented for you to use.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would say always look for new opportunities to better yourself and the lives of others around you.
How so?
So you might make financial decisions. So you might make a financial decision that has some type of investment option that keeps them in mind. You're like, well, I'm going to put this money in here because hopefully not, but my parents may need this for assisted living or whatever it might be later on. Mm-hmm. So you might put a bucket of money aside for that purpose. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying about that might help you make the lives of others around you better.
I like that. Okay.
Or it might be, you might, for example, decide to be a godmother or something like that, and you want to make sure that your godchild, has a good start. You might start a college fund It might not be called a college fund, but it might be money that you're setting aside for a college fund, etc.
Okay.
So, but those are things you think about once, you're in a position where you think you're on your way, and then now you're starting to think about others in your lives.
Yeah. That's nice.
Because one thing that I'm seeing a lot now, Mary Beth, is that you're having a situation where people are living so much longer,
mm-hmm.
and they're outliving their retirement.
Mm-hmm.
They might get to a point where they live so long that they need assistance. That might be somebody coming in the house, for example,
mm-hmm.
2-3 times a week, or that might mean they need to live in an assisted living home, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are investment programs that you can invest in now that will take care of that when you get to that point. And if you never need it, for example, then that's money that they can give you back.
Right. Wow.
So those are the types of things that you can think about in helping to make the lives of others better.
And what's the particular name of that investment that's for your elders
I can get you the name of it. I knew you were going to ask me. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it right now. But it's a program that you can do this for anybody. I know a friend right now that's doing it for her sister.
Mm-hmm.
She's set money aside, so when she gets to the point where she might need some type of assistance, there's a program for her. And I actually have one. I can't remember the name of it. I just set it up too.
Nice.
So, if I never need that type of assistance, someone coming in to care for me and that type of thing, so that's money I could use for something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is coming from... Let me see. How the higher the yield comes in financial transactions and everything, the higher the risk is for it.
Right.
So this is like a 2-part question. So the first one is, in reality, is a financial journey just about winning big and losing big to gain that type of financial success? Or is there a way to gain the same success and potential with like a slow and steady format?
Yeah, so when you think about financial investing and financial investing success, there will be an ebb and flow to it. Sometimes you'll have a bull market, which means, there's just big gains every week. For example, the market is just going crazy. Like a few months ago, before we had this pandemic, the stock market was up at 2,900, for example, remember? And now it dropped all the way back in the scariest part of this pandemic, back down to 19,000. It was at 29,000. And so that's the ebb, and that's the flow associated with that. So in order to balance that out, so you have steady investment and steady income and less spikes in it, for example, you have to make sure that your portfolio is well diversified. You have a good mix of stocks, for example. You have mutual funds, you have bonds in there. So when one is doing super great, for example, you're taking advantage of that. But when one is not doing that great, you're not getting killed by that, right? So you got to make sure that your portfolio has a good mix. So you're going to have some risky stocks in there. You're going to have some international stocks in there, for example. You're going to have some mutual funds. You're going to have some bonds. And all that together, you want to try to at least get a steady between, I would say, 5 to 8%. If you can get 8% steady over time, for example, your portfolio will be off the chain big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be great if we could predict when to be fully invested with all the risky stuff and make all the money, right?
Right.
And know when the downturn is about to hit.
And then pop out.
We can get out and move all our money to cash.
Right.
The bull market is over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until the bear market is over, or, you know, things are going down, and then jump back in when the bull market starts again. But there's nobody out there, even the best financial planners can predict it. Nobody saw this pandemic coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely knew if my financial planner saw it, he would have said, hey, move the cash, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, the day before it really started tanking, you know, everybody was saying, oh, you know, things are going great. And then all of a sudden the scare really happened. And then Wall Street just like said, oh, let's take all the money out. This is bad news.
Right. Mm.
So in order to even that out, as I said, you got to have a really nice diversified portfolio to make sure that you're taking advantages of the highs and not having too many of the lows.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you do it. And then you can, you know, have money in different investment arms too. And some investment firms are more aggressive than others.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you might have on this arm a very aggressive firm, for example, like Chubb. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you might have someone that's sort of like intermediate, like Vanguard, for example, mm-hmm. that's steady 7, 5, 7, but you never really lose, you know. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna just blow it out, but you're never gonna tank either.
Right. I understand the safety of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're saying if you found that perfect steady that you need, then that's constant. That's consistency.
Yeah. It's more steady, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know, you still have bad weeks or bad months in there, but if you look at it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, you'll see where Mary Beth has made this year 8%. Mm-hmm. You know?
Crazy.
Even though it has some spikes in it and so forth, but you'll say over time, this year your money's gone up from $10,000 to, you know, $11,000 or something near there, for example.
Right. Okay. So that really helped me understand how it works, because I was, you know, I definitely noticed that the higher the interest, the higher the risk. So, and the more your money's getting like tossed around. So, yeah. I was trying to understand. I was like, how are stocks such a higher interest rate than like a high yield savings account? You know, like I was trying to understand that. So that example that you just said really laid it down. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing is, if you think about stocks, it's like on a given day, it's like what people think is the value of something, mm-hmm. right? So today, I might look at a painting and say that, you know what, I'll pay $300 for that. Mm-hmm. Somebody else might come by and say, you know, I like that painting too, but I'll pay you $400 for that. Mm-hmm. And somebody else might say, oh, no, I'll give you $600 for that. That's mm-hmm. how much it's worth on that given day, how much somebody's willing to pay. And that's what stocks are all about.
Right. It's set by us.
How much are they willing to buy that for? How much are you willing to pay for a share of Google on a given day? Mm-hmm. I mean, Google is what? Over $2,000 a share right now. And so when investors see some type of storm, they might say, oh, mm-hmm. So are you willing to pay $2,100 for one share of Google, and somebody tomorrow might come and say, I'm willing to pay $2,300. You just made $200.
Yeah.
I tend to think that, they're just emotional cripples, and they're punks, if you will. Because a lot of these companies that they're selling the stock for a lot less are the same companies. They're still viable. They're still manufacturing good products. The products are still being sold and so forth. It's just an emotional release. A lot of times companies will buy stocks, for example, and watch them run up. And they know that their philosophy is let it go up to so much and then sell. And let's take the profits and go and start over again. That's how some of these investors work. I'm going to buy low, sell high, start over. And that's how they make their money. They know that these companies are good companies, but that's what they do. That's how they stay in business, and that's why they have the mansions. I'm going to hedge my bet that the market's going to go the other way, so I'm going to sell what I own right now and just take my money. And then everybody starts selling. It's like, okay, I'll buy it for less. I'll buy it for less. I'll buy it for less. And so the market goes down that way.
I like how you define stocks. Not leaving any money on the table.
Right.
Okay. So if you were to tell some advice to someone just getting into this whole investing financial world, some lessons that you learned from some financial mistakes without giving too much, discretionary detail, what would you choose to say?
For me, I couldn't start investing like day one when I first got my job. I had to wait about a year because when I came to Atlanta, for example, I had to start with nothing. When I first came here, I had to sleep for about a month on my sister's sofa until I worked a little bit and got enough money to get my own apartment. And then I had to buy furniture. In addition to that, I bought my first new hoopty, which was really, really old 1979 Toyota Corolla. So I had a lot of startup costs, so I couldn't start right away. So one of the things I think I would have done differently is I would have definitely, in addition to doing those startup things, I would have started putting money in the 401k plan right away. And I would have definitely started an investment right away. Those were a couple things in hindsight that I wish I had done immediately. But, the following year I was able to start investing and putting money in the 401k, but I still couldn't invest 100%. So at the time, they would allow you to invest like 7%. And I couldn't do the whole 7% because I need that money to live on. So I could only do like 2% or 3%, which was better than nothing. But I wanted to do the full 7%, but I couldn't.
Right, but it was coming.
But I would say to anyone, if you can, if it doesn't hurt too bad, if they say you can contribute $20,000 a year to the 401k plan or whatever, and it doesn't hurt, please do it. Because on the backside, your employer is matching that, 50 cents on the dollar up to maybe 6 or 7%. So the more you contribute, the more they're going to contribute, and that's more free money for you.
Right. Okay. So start as soon as you get it. Make sure that you're grabbing every match that's possible.
Yep.
And what's one more thing you would say?
Leave the money there. Don't put the money in there thinking that it's an account I can pull from. Pretend like you don't even have it. It's untouchable. It's untouchable money. Okay. If you need a slush fund or extra money, start another account with that money in there, and know that this is my slush fund. in case I have a rainy day or I need some extra cash, but not the money you have invested. That's the money you pay to yourself. Mm-hmm. That's why you work so hard, in order to pay yourself. Just like when you go to the store and get your nails did, your hair did, get them 5-inch stilettos, and you feel good about that short mini. All them kind of things, Feel the same way about paying yourself,
Take pride in that.
Yeah. Child, yeah, I bought me a new leather jacket, but guess what? Before I bought the leather jacket, I got paid.
Yes.
And I was not going to buy the leather jacket until I got paid.
I'm saying. That's how I started to think, too. I was just like, yeah, I can, splurge on this right now, but I got to invest in something real quick. Let me just match this.
Because you know what? I've never seen anything on TV, on the news, or anything saying, we're not going to make no new clothes. We're not going to make new cars. We're going to stop.
Right.
They're always going to make that new stuff. It's like Doritos. They will make more.
Right.
So there will be other opportunities to have that same thing and or something even newer and better. Mm-hmm. So don't think you're missing out on that kind of stuff, because this whole country runs through those that consume. And so they're always going to produce stuff for consumers.
Right.
Whether it's clothing, whether it's food, whether it's vehicles, you name it.
Right.
It's always going to be there. Because I remember when your father and I first got out of college and moved down here, we thought, oh my goodness, the Toyota Supra was it. We thought the 280Z was the finest car ever. And if we didn't get those cars, we were missing out. Well, guess what? You don't even think about those cars anymore, because there's so many other cars that have come out we never thought about that would ever exist, that just leaps over them. You're just like, oh my God, I thought that was going to be the car, but there's always something else. Your dad wouldn't trade in his BMW now for that Supra if his life depended on it.
I know.
But back in the day, he had to have that Toyota Supra, because that was the car. My point is that there's always going to be more, and there's always going to be something better.
Right.
Because that's how our economy works, is you got to create that supply and demand, and you only get that demand if it's something people want. And so our manufacturers keep building and inventing new things that people will want. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go out there now and buy a Model T, and that was the first car. Mm-hmm. But I'll get that doggone Porsche 911.
Oh gosh. I was thinking I would hear you say I would get one of the alternative vehicles so you can get that nice little tax cut.
Yeah, that too. All I'm saying is that whether it's like a Tesla, for example, where it's an electric car where they give you benefits back for buying those kind of cars, you look at that versus the cars back in the 60s that were hot. For example, I remember my brother growing up, the big thing was a Plymouth GTX and a Chevelle, with big motor in it, and all these guys were like, oh man, that is the car. And then they had something called the Super B and the GTX and so forth. Yeah, and those were the cars, and all the guys wanted them and so forth. Now, and they used to have a Mustang called a Mach 1, and everybody wanted that Mach 1. It was supposed to be so fast and so sporty and so forth. Now you couldn't give those guys those cars. Because things change, right?
Yep.
Something new and improved comes out. Mm-hmm. Back then, the cars had an 8-track tape player. Now, everything is streaming.
Yep.
You don't even have, CD players anymore,
You really don't. No, I was thinking that's so true. Everything has changed, and it's just the coolest CD player is a what? What is?
Yeah, it's a relic. Back in the day, I remember Run DMC. They used to have all those big boom boxes in the videos and stuff, boxes in the videos, and that was the thing. Who wants to carry around that thing that weighs 50 pounds?
Heard they back.
When
Nobody.
you can just have a little iPod and the little Bluetooth speakers in your ear now. That sound way better. And you're not blowing everybody else out. You know, if you want to listen to Taylor Swift, you can do that. Nobody will ever know. They'll think you're jamming to something else.
You can listen to whatever you want to. Just bob your head. Yes. Let's see. Okay. So, in your financial journey, have you ever had to sacrifice something in like a holistic sense? Like, have you ever gotten beside yourself?
No. As a matter of fact, I've never done that, and I would say when I think about being whole and being healthy and being realistic about stuff, I would say to you that your health and your family are the most important things over and above finances. I'll tell you why. If you don't have your health, and it's hard for you right now probably to think about this because you're young and you're still vibrant and you know, you probably think you're invincible and, you know, nobody can really tell you anything because, you know, you're up and you're coming and you got this, right? But if you don't have your health, you have nothing. Let me give you an example. You know Apple, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the iPods and, you know, the earbuds and all that kind of stuff and Apple TV and so forth. Well, all that stuff really started, Apple PCs and iPads and all that kind of stuff started with Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple the second time. He's the one that brought the wave and really took Apple into the stratosphere as an American brand. And the guy ended up having, you know, maybe $4 to $8 billion of his own money. But guess what? He couldn't buy his own health. All the money in the world couldn't save his life. So he died in 2013 of pancreatic cancer. And guess what? I'm sure he would give every dime of that money that he had away if he could be here today.
Yeah.
So if you don't have your health, you can't enjoy the money. You can't do anything. I see so many people say, well, I'm going to start traveling and enjoy myself when I retire. Guess what? Their body, by the time they retire, is broken down, or they got knee problems, hip problems, getting hip replacements, all these different types of things. They just don't have the health anymore or the desire anymore that they had when they were young with all that vivaciousness. Right. And so by the time they retire, they can't really enjoy themselves. And that's one thing I'll tell you now. Enjoy your financial success now too. Yeah, save money, make sure you're putting money away for rainy days and retirement and, you know, helping others in your family and that type of thing. But also enjoy yourself now because you won't be able to enjoy it any better later on. When you take that beach vacation, for example, you can get out there and do cartwheels on the beach right now or just dive in the ocean backward if that's what you want to do, et cetera, in the pool or whatever you want to do, for example. Yeah. When you get 60, you're not going to want to do that. You might want to go get a massage, for example, and maybe get a Mai Tai and look at the water.
Well, yeah.
You're not going to want to ride a horse on the beach, probably.
Well, yeah.
So without your health, you're nothing, but, you know, take advantage of your health when you're young and enjoy your life some. I'm not saying splurge and just spend all your money on having a good time, but make sure you intersperse that in with everything else you're doing. Yeah. Because life is not to wait on, it's something to have now. You don't wait until you're 60 before you start living. You're living now. Yeah. And I know, you know, sometimes families can be insane at times. But family is important in that at the end of the day, And in trying times, you want to have your family in your corner, right? Yeah. You want them to be there for you. So when, the tough times come, you want to be able to go to Brenda and you want to be able to go to Tab and have them in your corner to help you out and give you advice and that type of thing. Yeah. And I would say, don't let money, how can I put this? Don't let money ruin your humanity. Don't let it define you. Let it help you help other people. Because a lot of people get money, for example, and they become Teflon Don. You can't touch them. You can't be around them. I look at, to give you a celebrity example, I look at Jay-Z and I look at Beyonce, for example. I look at Kanye West, and they got all these bodyguards around them, and they're not real people anymore, Yeah,
the characters.
They're like a caricature of a person and so forth. Is that the life you want to lead? You can't touch the people. You don't want people to be around you because so much money is in your possession now. You don't think you should be around certain people and touch certain people and so forth. Those are the same people, they were involved with or wanting to be around when they were coming up.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden you're a billionaire, you're close to it, and those people can't be around you, or you don't think that you should touch those kind of people. Something wrong with that. Don't let money make you lose your humanity, And it's not something where, you have to do like Tyler Perry that says, I went to Houston, for example, and I left a $21,000 tip for all the waitresses who aren't working right now because of the pandemic. You don't have to do anything like that. You can help people quietly and nobody will ever know, but you know, and they know that you've helped them and so forth.
Yeah, and you can help them with what you got right now.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with you spending on them. It might be you giving your time or providing a ride or assistance in some way, that something that they couldn't do for themselves, but you could do because you're financially stable enough and in a position to help that way.
Yeah. Just being
and
there.
that's part of being whole, is being very human, being very sensitive to people and open to seeing where people are and wanting to help people where it makes sense for you to help people. And helping is not always, here's $1 for you, here's $2 for you. It's sometimes using your status, for example, or using your position or your access in order to help people. And it's not who you are, it's what you have, Yeah. And use that money to help other people when you get to that point. I'll give you another example. There was a young man who was on the swim team at it was either Westlake High School or Benjamin E. Mays High School. And great swimmer. He was getting ready to go to college at Howard University in D.C. Got a full ride because he's a great swimmer.
Wow.
Guess what? He didn't have anything to put his clothes in to take with him to school. So like I did to you, I bought him a set of luggage. And it was the colors of the red bison, because that's their colors up there. And, he went up there with his 4 pieces of luggage with all his little stuff in there, and he felt good about himself. But guess what? He thought his mom bought that for him. And I told his mom, I said, look, here's a set of luggage for your son. Give it to him and let him use it. And I said, I don't need my name on it. She knows, but he doesn't have to know. She's a superhero in his eyesight, you see?
Yeah. Just strengthen that family a little bit.
And those little snippets of kindness you can do in spades all the time, Yeah. It might be just sending somebody a card, for example, or taking somebody, a little Chick-fil-A sandwich for lunch that couldn't get out and that type of stuff. It's just little things. And just because you have a car and you have a couple extra dollars that you could go to Chick-fil-A and buy that sandwich for them and take it home.
Right. Like, it's also, you're able to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be killing you to.
Right.
You're not overextending yourself. It's just,
right.
Yeah, it feels good.
Because at the end of the day, Miss Mary Beth,
yes.
all you're going to have is your reputation and your name.
Okay.
And you want people to say, oh, Mary Beth, yeah, I knew her. That's Brenda and Tab's daughter. Oh, my gosh, she is such a giving, caring person, you know?
Mm.
And think about this. When people think of President Obama, for example, they're like, oh, great, intelligent man, caring and so forth, right?
Fireworks, yes.
When they think of this current president, oh, man, he's a liar. You see what I'm saying? That's your reputation.
Yeah. That's all you have, yeah.
Yeah, that's all you have. You can have a gazillion dollars, but if people think that you are a liar, a cheat, and a bully,
right,
they're not going to think about your money. That doesn't matter.
You can only pay someone so much to keep lying for you.
Yep. So in those acts of kindness will go a long ways in, building your reputation as someone who's kind to humanity.
Yeah. I like that. And do what feels good. I like that. Okay. And I have one last question.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that we go through as like Black people in all the areas that we are, what do you think keeps us from taking the first initial step? Because it is definitely laid out, and once you start talking to people who knows what they're talking about involving 401ks and investing in compound interest and in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, like once you get in the conversation, it's just upwards from there.
Right.
But what do you think is the inhibitor that we face that keeps us before we start that?
There are probably several different things, but two things that come to mind. It's where people are in their lives. So if you come from a background where you've always been fed the notion that, I need to get a job and I need to work for my money and I do my 40 hours and I get my wage, for example, I get my salary and that's how I make my money. If you're in that mindset, then, and everybody behind you, for example, is in that mindset, and you don't have anybody, like I didn't have anybody behind me saying, no, yeah, you're going to get a job and you're going to have a salary and so forth. But there are other ways to make money. If you don't ever have anybody to show you anything differently, then you're always going to be in that mindset. And so, but today there's really not an excuse. You got to want to learn. The other thing, you got to want to learn different things and how to do things differently. Right? And so everybody nowadays has a smartphone. Everybody knows how to click on Google and do a search and so forth. And you just got to be willing to learn and surround yourself with people that can give you good advice. But there's so many people that I see that either can't learn, won't learn, or won't listen. I'll give you an example. All right, so they're saying we're in a pandemic. We should do social distancing. You should wear a mask, and if you can, wear gloves, for example. There's so many people aren't following it. So if they can't do something that's going to save their lives mainly, or maybe, and keep them from getting sick, how are you going to get to those people and say, hey, look, I know you're a blue collar worker, but things that prohibited us from being successful. It was hard to get a house, for example, because all the mortgage loans were rigged, so we couldn't get them and that type of thing.
Yeah.
It was hard for us to get any land and all this kind of stuff because everything was rigged. And then, they were giving all the land, for example, to the farmers that were immigrants, but they never gave any land to us to farm and that type of stuff. So we way behind the eight ball, if you will, as far as having financial wealth and growth. But I'll say that to say this, you can start it today for yourself,
Yep. You have that power.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can start it for yourself. So, the generations of Black folks out there may not be in that position, but, you and Adam, for example, can be the ones that started for your generation, and others that think like you guys do.
Mm-hmm. And we can talk about it with our friends, and some may pick it up, some may drop it, and they can talk about it with their friends, and it just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just think of it like Facebook or Instagram, for example. Everybody's following different people and doing these things, that are growing their financial security and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's quick to, I'm on Instagram, for example. How can all these people jump on the Instagram but not want to jump on the financial bandwagon and invest?
Because some of them think it's scams.
I know Instagram is free to a certain extent, but, investing to a certain extent has a lot of freedom in it too.
Mm-hmm.
It'll set you up for freedom later on,
You also have to learn, delayed gratification, though. Because that's not just normal. Most people just don't have that to really get into investing. Because, that's what you talked about. You said, make sure that you don't touch this money. It's not for you right now.
Yeah, but so you get your gratification. So what I always do is, of course, off the top from my check, money goes into the 401k on a pre-tax basis. So I don't even know that money exists really, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I have discretionary money that I do my own personal investing with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also leave money in the check to buy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I buy stuff off Amazon probably every 2 weeks and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I go without. So it's not like I'm delaying my gratification. I do get my gratification.
Mm.
It's just that I'm not spending all my money on gratification.
Right.
I'm not doing that to my detriment,
Mm.
And people get in debt for self-gratification.
Mm.
I don't agree with that at all. Don't get in debt just to be self-gratification. No.
Right.
Because in the end, you're not going to be gratified at all. You're going to be miserable because you won't be able to pay that debt, and then you might get in a position where your credit's bad and you can't get anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be smart about it.
Yeah. Always hit the balance.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. Otherwise, you'll get out of kilter.
Out of kilter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll be skewed.
Oh.
Yep. Before you know it, you'll look like a hockey stick.
Okay.
And you won't be at the high end, you'll be at the low end.
A seesaw. I got you. Okay. Yeah, but thank you so much. It's my first interview.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. A little bit much left.
Yeah, you too.